You know that feeling when you scroll through a sea of wine coolers, each glossy photo promising that perfect, chilled glass at the press of a button, only to end up with a unit that takes up half the kitchen counter and barely fits a dozen bottles? I've been there, and I know the hesitation that comes with spending a few $100s on something that looks sleek online but might turn out to be a clunky, noisy disappointment on the countertop. The last thing you want is to buy a cooler that sounds like a refrigerator and then discover it can't even hold the wine collection you actually have. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this video I'm going to walk through the THOR Kitchen 15-inch freestanding wine cooler, break down the real-world pros and cons, and help you decide if it's the right fit for your home bar or if you should keep looking. First off, let's talk about the space you'll need. The THOR cooler measures 15 inches wide, which is a decent size for most kitchen islands or small bar nooks, but you still have to account for the depth and height. The unit sits about 34 inches tall and 20 inches deep, so you'll need a clearance of at least a foot on either side for ventilation. If you're planning to tuck it under a counter, the under-counter version of this model actually isn't truly built-in. You'll need to leave a gap for airflow, otherwise the compressor will run hotter and louder. I measured a few kitchens where the owners tried to push the cooler flush against a cabinet and ended up with a constant hum that could be heard throughout the living room. So, if you have a dedicated freestanding spot with a bit of breathing room, you'll be fine. If you're hoping to hide it in a tight corner, you might run into heat and noise issues. Temperatures are a big selling point for any cooler, and the THOR unit offers a touchpad digital controller with an LED readout that lets you set the temperature anywhere from 40°F up to 65°F. In practice, the thermostat holds steady within a degree or two after the initial cooling cycle, which is more than adequate for most reds and whites. I ran a quick side-by-side test with a bottle of Pinot Noir that should be served at 55°F and a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc at 48°F. After a few hours, the cooler kept the Pinot at 55.2°F and the Sauvignon at 47.8°F, meaning the sensor is responding well to the set point. That said, the control panel is a little stiff. Pressing the arrows can feel like you're fighting an old elevator button. If you're looking for a sleek glass front unit with a seamless glass touch interface, you'll find this feel a bit cheap. On the plus side, the LED readout is bright enough to see from across the room, which is handy when the unit is tucked behind a pantry door. Storage capacity is where a lot of people get tripped up. The spec sheet says it can hold up to 33 bottles, but that's based on standard 750 milliliters bottles stacked tightly on each other. In my kitchen, the adjustable wood shelves were a nice surprise because you can shift them to accommodate larger format bottles or even a few wine glasses. However, because the shelves are made of wood, they're prone to warping if you load the unit to the max and leave it for months. A couple of reviewers mentioned that the wood started to swell slightly after a few weeks of heavy use, which can make the shelves creak when you pull a bottle out. If you're a collector who mainly stores standard bottles, you'll probably be fine, but if you have a mix that includes Magnum or champagne bottles, you might end up with a cramped feel and have to leave some space unused. One feature you'll notice right away is the interior LED lighting. It's a bright, white light that makes the wine rack look like a mini boutique display. That's great for parties. Guests can see the collection and you can showcase a label without having to open the door. The downside is that the light stays on whenever you open the door, which draws a bit more power, and some users have complained that the light flickers when the compressor cycles. If you're trying to keep energy costs low or you're sensitive to light exposure for certain wine types, you might prefer a cooler that only lights up when you press a button. In practice, the flicker is brief and not painful, but it's something to be aware of. Security and peace of mind come into focus for people who have a large collection or who host gatherings. The THOR cooler has a lock that you can engage with a standard key, which is useful if you have kids around or want to keep a rare bottle safe. The lock itself is fairly sturdy, but the lock mechanism is on the front, meaning the door must be fully closed for the